are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast. I'm Larck. Sorry, everything is out of whack right now for me because as soon as I get ready to start recording and going live on the show, some breaking news just hit. Quarterback Hank Brown will, in fact, be entering the NCAA transfer portal. That happened as of about 20 minutes ago, but I just saw it. So I'm trying to get those posted up to the world right now. So, yeah, that just happened. Breaking right there. I guess we can go ahead and just get started right away. I mean, this has been a very boring week for Auburn football outside of the transfer portal news. But, yeah, Hank Brown now in the portal. Says to enter as of Monday. That's reported by one Pete Thamel. Yeah, about just 26 minutes ago. Auburn now in the mix for a bunch of portal quarterbacks, regardless of the departure of Hank Brown or not. But now Auburn now in the mix for needing probably about two guys to fill out those spots. So I can go ahead and just enter that in. Yeah, this was not what how's this show to start. That happened. Yeah, 2 minutes from the live stream starting. Breaking news. All right, so transfer portal updates. Hank Brown has entered the NCAA transfer portal. Announced that he shall enter it. Auburn also had three other guys that have entered the portal since last time we have discussed transfer portal news with each other. Auburn lost defensive lineman TJ Lindsey, a part of that 2023 class. Caleb Wooten, which I thought was probably the most surprising out of all the transfer outs, has announced he will be entering the portal. And someone I was expecting to enter the portal pretty soon enough was Caleb Burton, who has also entered the NCAA transfer portal. But yeah, Hank Brown has entered his name. So in total right now, that leaves Auburn with 4, 8, 11 departures right now. Of course, the portal does open officially tomorrow, where players are allowed to go as they please. I know a lot of visits have been set. Fresno State linebacker I believe, is scheduled to visit with Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. But Auburn's going to be in the mix for all of the hot ticket quarterbacks available in the portal. We'll go over that in just a quick second. But yeah, with the departures of Holden Geriner and Hank Brown, and of course Peyton Thorne out of eligibility, Auburn is left now with Deuce Knight and Walker White as the two guys on scholarship at Auburn right now. Of course, Deuce Knight on the way soon enough. So now you got two guys you got to go for. I think you got to go for a starter and a veteran guy to be your backup, because I don't know right now where Walker White stands to being the second string going into next year. I think you got to get your first string and your second string guy. And I see with the weakest link commenting, Hank is probably headed to UAB to play for Dilfer. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I'm more interested to see where Holden Geriner goes out of the two. I kind of want to see what he really can do, because he never got to really see him at Auburn. Auburn in an interesting situation right now, because I don't think you put Walker White in as the backup right away. I think he'll get more minutes than he did as like the backup this year, or as a backup this year, not really the backup. That entire news bulletin caught me by surprise. I wasn't even sat properly in my chair. All that just happened in a matter of minutes for me. So yeah, you lose a tight end. You got two wide receivers out, two tight ends, two receivers, two defensive linemen, a punter, and a offensive lineman, and then one defensive back. So yeah, a couple of departures, probably due to mostly playing time across the board. But Auburn got more interesting just over a few minutes of time getting a chance. Now you have to get two quarterbacks. Hugh Freeze has said ad nauseum that he wants to have at least four quarterbacks on scholarship on his roster. So unless you're booting up one of those other guys up from walk on to scholarship guy, you got to get two. And I mean, we'll get right into that. I mean, that was going to be a short little tidbit transfer update, but now Hank Brown's made that quarterback room a lot more open. So yeah, transfer portal quarterback hot board. as we see in the title, we talk about how any of the quarterbacks in the portal currently a good fit for Auburn. We got a few. I mean, I got a few names. That are in the portal right now, might I add. I've already mentioned that I like the optics of what John Mateer can do for Auburn, but he's not entered the portal yet. I don't know if he will or not, really. I know there's a lot of speculation that he will because his OC went to Oklahoma. So with Oklahoma having a large departure of players due to some ongoing issues inside that program, yeah, I don't really all that stuff going on Oklahoma. They've lost a few really good players. One of those guys being Jackson Arnold, quarterback. So leaves open room for if John Mateer were to enter the portal, he would probably go straight to Oklahoma to be back with his offensive coordinator. But yeah, so I'm not going to add him into the list right now. This is only guys who are currently in the portal. And I mean, to start right off with, the guy I just mentioned right there, Jackson Arnold, could be a potential could be a potential prospect for Auburn because of what he was able to do later on in the year. I mean, looking at his stats, they're not overtly. I mean, he got benched earlier in the year. He wasn't. I don't remember. I can't remember if it was an injury or he just wasn't playing as well. But I remember Auburn had to play against Michael Hawkins, who didn't perform well at all. But on the year, Jackson Arnold, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, had a 124 quarterback rating, 1,400 yards passing. Also was able to rush for 444 yards. Also had a punt on the year, which I thought was interesting. Best game of the season, of course, is against Alabama. It would be one of those that I have to attribute to being his best game. But of course, games such as Ole Miss, he had a pretty decent game stat-wise. And I can't look past the Bama game. 130 yards rushing for him on the day in a game where they just played keep away from Alabama. Also a decent game against South Carolina. But I think he's an interesting look for Auburn because of what he can do with the ball. I originally thought he was a pocket passer until I really sat down and watched him play against Alabama, and dude's a lot more mobile. I gave him credit for. I think there is a way for him to kind of fit into the scheme Hugh Freeze wants to play, and I don't know if that's like if he still wants to go with the RPO. I think Jackson Arnold can run that. The only issue I find with a lot of that is I don't know if the RPO is the way to go right now for Auburn. And I know Hugh Freeze wants to throw the ball down the field a lot more, but I don't know how much he'll be running the ball with the quarterbacks. So I think it'd be interesting. I don't mind Jackson Arnold. I think he'd be an interesting look for. I just probably need to do more film on him because he's pretty much a new entry. I didn't really think there was going to be a lot of interest between Auburn and Jackson Arnold, but then there's been a lot of talk about Auburn being one of the top guys for him. But of course, I think there's a lot of talent there. But has there been enough on paper to show that he doesn't need as much development? Because I think what you want from an Auburn quarterback going into next year is you already want a guy who has an X factor ability available, and you're not constantly having to coach him to do the right things week in and week out. And there's just some issues in Jackson Arnold that I could see. I feel like he could be a more mobile Peyton Thorne, which scares me in the slightest. I don't want to compare too many of these guys with Peyton Thorne, which I saw one Fire Freeze talk about. All look really similar to Peyton Thorne thus far. So yeah, Jackson Arnold is an interesting look for me, but I'll have to continue to go through that. I'll have to see more film on him. If he has the mechanics to run the scheme that Hugh Freeze wants to run. But I mean, we're talking about a guy who got benched for a good chunk of the season. Up next, the guy who I think Auburn has been interested in since he entered the portal is Boston College quarterback Thomas Castellanos. Last year had a down year. This past year, he ended up losing his job. He got injured during a game and was able to come back in as a starter. 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 1,300 yards passing. Only had 200 yards rushing this season. But last year he had 1,000 yards on the ground. He also had a good chunk of interceptions too. There's a lot of playmaking ability with Castellanos, but there's also the downsides of getting a playmaker at times is the mistakes that can happen. And of course, he showed development in the first year, Bill O'Brien, but there was a lot of looks at what doesn't work with Castellanos in the scheme. I think there's also a size issue could be in a play here. I think Castanella is just under 6 foot, which he's overcome that a lot. I've always really enjoyed watching Castanella's play during his time at I think last year and the year prior. Whenever Boston College would be on, I would just love watching Castanella's play. He is in fact a playmaker, but I don't know if he comes to this Auburn offense and just plays great right away. I think you need some time with him. He's just a year out of having double-digit interceptions, which Auburn didn't have that this year. Surprisingly enough, I think Peyton Thorne really only had 8, if not mistaken, and then you had 4 from Hank Brown, or 3 from Hank Brown, one of the two. But yeah, you didn't have a double-digit interception thrower at quarterback for Auburn. So I don't think that Thomas Castanelas really work with Hugh Freeze. I know Hugh Freeze likes those 80-20 balls down the field, likes to make those big play throws. I just don't think you want to get a guy who has had issues with turnovers in the past with Castanelas, despite what he can do on the ground and what he can do with the ball in his hands. I think he's a playmaker. I just don't think he'd be an SEC caliber quarterback. After that, so yeah, I think those past two guys, Jackson Arnold, probably the more interesting out of the two. He does have the talent. And I think all these guys really do. And the development is an issue I want to get taken care of. I want a guy to come in right away and not expect anything bad. Because Peyton Thorne had his ups and downs at Michigan State. He had the up year and the down year. And then Auburn brought him in, and then he had a down year and an up year. But now, since you messed up the transfer portal, recruitment the first year and the second year of the Freeze era, you got to get a guy who doesn't require quarterback development. That's what I'm looking at, because a lot of these guys, I'm not seeing that out of quite yet. I want to wait around and see if any of these other guys really enter the portal, some bigger name guys. But now, since Hank Brown is entering the portal, now you got to worry about who's going to be backing up your guy. So yeah, I don't think Castanelas is going to be the guy for Auburn. Jackson Arnold very well could be. Just I don't know. It depends on how much Hugh Freeze wants to coach up his quarterback. Up next, a guy Auburn has seen this year, because he didn't get to see Jackson Arnold because Michael Hawkins played. But New Mexico quarterback Devin Dampier, a dual threat weapon in and of himself. Last year, 2,700 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and 19 touchdowns on the ground, with also 1,100 yards on the ground for himself. The big issue with him is, of course, moving up from the Mountain West to the SEC. Of course, Auburn has seen him before. Whenever Auburn played against him, he had a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Made some plays. That's before Auburn really found out their identity and with the defensive backs. But he had a really good season. But again, it's the interceptions are an issue, and I get a lot of those times I saw him make a bad throw or throw to the other team. It was trying to make a play with the talents that's around him. I mean, all of his interception, the 2 interception games he had, Arizona was 1, Auburn was 1, and then you had games like Colorado State and Fresno State and Utah State. I always think it's been an interesting pick up for Auburn because of what he's able to do, what he was able to do to a lot of these teams. I mean, when you look at the Arizona game, he had 3 touchdowns passing. He also had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 390 yards total against Arizona, who's a top 25 team, who also has a quarterback who could very well enter the portal. I don't think he will. I think he's already announced that he will be staying with Arizona, which I commend him for doing. But yeah, I would be interested to see how Devin Dampier does moving up a level. I think that I think he's already pretty much going to go to Utah State. His OC went to Utah State. So I think he could go there, or maybe even just Utah, because Utah is going to have an opening at quarterback unless Cam Rising might have another year of eligibility. He always has one of those lurking around somewhere. But yeah, Dampier does a lot of great things with his legs and his arm. But there's just a lot of interceptions that came from trying to make a play down the field. So yeah, I stay leery of the guys who like to turn over the football a little too much. And now, for a guy Auburn fans are very knowledgeable of, is TJ Finley. Yeah, this was mostly a joke. But TJ Finley last year did not have the greatest year, but he also got hurt. 400 yards, not 500 yards passing, and touchdown, 2 interceptions. I don't think Auburn's going to be in the mix for him whatsoever. But I thought it'd be funny just to mention him, just for old time's sake of talking about TJ Finley a lot a couple of years back. I'm not going to stay too long on that. But a guy Auburn has been looking at, I think there's been a lot of talk about this since he's entered the portal, is in fact USC quarterback Miller Moss. Now, this one gets interesting too because you get a guy who is a passer, like a full-on passer, 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions this past year, 2,500 yards passing. You also had 2 touchdowns on the ground from him, but also negative 18 yards on the ground. This dude he can extend plays. Now, whenever, like as Fire Freeze said, a lot of these guys look like Peyton Thorne. Stat-wise, Miller Moss has some lesser stats than Peyton Thorne does. He also has some more stats than Peyton Thorne does. I think a lot of this could be what he has done with a Lincoln Riley system. That's whenever I see a USC or Lincoln Riley quarterback, I always want to assume right away that it's a system quarterback. But guys like Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler kind of proved me wrong with that, and Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and all those guys. I just don't know if Miller Moss will be the guy to go for here. I think whenever a guy leaves Lincoln Riley early, I don't think it pans out well for them, really. I mean, Spencer Rattler worked out for because he got benched. He lost his job and was able to go to Shane Beamer and able to keep his career going. He's now in the NFL as a second-string quarterback for the New Orleans Saints, if I'm not mistaken. Soon to be starting quarterback for them as well, because I don't think Derek Carr is going to be there for that long. Moss is a good passer. He made a lot of great plays. I mean, if you watch the Week 1 matchup versus LSU, and of course I don't think LSU's defense is something to brag about, but it's still LSU, and he was able to extend plays with his legs, get out of the pocket, find guys down the field, and make those plays. But the aspect of him not being able to be mobile, I mean, he has negative 18 yards on the ground on the year, 21 attempts. I mean, a lot of those are going to be sacks. I just don't think that he's too much of a one-threat guy to be the guy at Auburn. I mean, the most yards he had all on the ground all year was 17 off of 5 carries, and he also got a touchdown off of that. Also had a punt on the year, so that's also interesting. But as a passer, I mean, he had a few good games. Only had 2 multi-interception games that I'm saying. I don't want stats are a whole other thing, but I mean, LSU 75% completion percentage, almost 400 yards through the air, and also a touchdown to go with that one as well. Had a quarterback rating of 172. His best game per quarterback rating came against Rutgers, where he had 308 and 2 touchdowns for that game. But yeah, I think the lack of mobility here kind of hurts Miller Moss in this regard. But yeah, I think that's what I think loses him there for me, as his inability to get out of the pocket. Because of course Peyton Thorne had the ability to run. Auburn utilized him less in that regard. This past year, utilized it more the previous year. But without that ability to run, you kind of lose an aspect of your offense that helped you out more often than not at times. So, yeah, I don't think Miller Moss will be the look here because of his inability to run. Fire Freeze, honestly, the kid from Tulane might be the best in the portal so far, but bringing in a sophomore might cost you one of the 2 you have at the moment. That's a lot of the things I see from some of these guys is I want to pick up one of these younger dudes that can develop over time. But I don't think Hugh Freeze can afford that, right? And not afford and not the monetary words in the aspect of like money, or NIL funds. But you can't spend too much time developing a guy going forward. I know the guy from Tulane, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I know he had a very good season. Tulane was like just outside of the playoffs, really, at one of the G5 spots at least. Yeah, very good team in Tulane. I forgot who they're playing. I think are they playing Ole Miss in the bowl? I know the bowl schedule got announced not too long ago, and Auburn didn't get in, so I don't really care too much. But regardless, I mean, Auburn had an opportunity to get in one at 5-7. But Yeah, you don't want to get a sophomore or a freshman guy moving up. I know if I would have said like earlier in the year if I'm trying to remember A&M's quarterback's name off the top of my head, but it's blanking on me. But A&M's quarterback, had he entered the portal and they went back to Wegman or whatever, because I think if Wegman had worked out better whenever he came back in, that you would have seen one of like whoever got the starting job at the end of the season for A&M, the other guy was going to enter the portal. For them. And had he entered the portal, I definitely would have thought he would have been a good look for Auburn because of what he was able to do. And now I got to look it up because it's bothering me because I talked about this guy for like a week, at least before Auburn played them. But yeah, excuse me for just 2 seconds. All right, now the name's not pulling up. What's up? Marcel Reed. There we go. Oh yeah, if Marcel Reed entered the portal, even if he's a redshirt freshman, I would have get that guy right away. What he was able to do as a freshman in his first year starting was absolutely just wild and out of this world. But yeah, Darian Mensah is his name. I just thought you just put that in there. I'll have to look at his stats really because I'm not really watching, but I know he has great stats: 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 2,700 yards passing. Also had a touchdown on the ground. Yeah. Man, he looks the part on paper. What are his best games of the season? Played well against Memphis. South Florida played very well because that would have been later in the season. How do you play against? Okay, so good season against Kansas State, and had a decent game versus Oklahoma. Again, like you said, if you bring in a guy who's too young, you might lose Walker White or Deuce Knight, one of those two, because those guys aren't going to wait around too long if you're not careful. And then just get back on here with the last two guys talk about here. Everyone knows this guy. Everyone's been hearing about it. This has been probably the most popular discussion amongst everybody is who could be the next guy to come through is, of course, Liberty quarterback Caden Salter. Now, of course, Caden Salter was recruited by Hugh Freeze at Liberty. He had a very great year last year. I think had he entered the portal last year, that would have been the guy Auburn would have went for right away. Like, no holds barred, get Caden Salter to Auburn right away. But he chose to stay. And I think that really hurt him for what we think about when we think of Caden Salter, because he had such a great year last year. And this year, I mean, the stats are good. I mean, 15 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns on the ground, so 22 combined touchdowns, 6 interceptions, almost 2,000 yards passing, 500 on the ground. But Salter lost his job towards the end of the year. And whenever and on the road, look at the split here. On the road, Caden Salter's play went down significantly. He had 200 less yards on the ground on the run or on the road, 3 less touchdowns, and 2 more interceptions. He has a lot of dual threat ability. That's the thing you like with Caden Salter is his ability to make plays with his legs. And of course he has an arm, but I think he lacks a lot of that accuracy. I mean, he had a few games down the line here where he had less than 50% completion percentage. He had a 48 and a 35. And that 35 coming against Sam Houston State, where he also had 2 interceptions versus a team that's just now been in the FBS for all of 2 years. That's one of the, I think he could be a good addition had he came in last year. That's my thing is I think you waited too long. Or if not Auburn, but more Caden Salter. I think he waited too long. I think if you entered the portal last year, you go into this year, or you go into you go at the start of this past season, for Auburn at least, as the starting quarterback. I think you get in right away. You got the film to prove that you're better than what we saw from Peyton Thorne the previous year. But you waited too long, and you had a down year, and you lost your job. So I think Auburn this is going to be a guy Auburn's still going to try to get. I can't say right now that I'm all for it. I really think that there's some touch-ups in his game that he needs to work on. Of course, his accuracy. That's such a big thing with quarterbacks is you got to be able to throw the ball to who you want to throw the ball to. I mean, I love the analogy of like Joe Milton. Joe Milton had a great arm, but could not get the ball where he wanted to go. If you needed a 50-yard pass, Joe Milton would throw a 50-yard pass. If you wanted a 20-yard pass, Joe Milton would throw a 50-yard pass. You got to have the accuracy to go with it. Caden Salter, I think out of the guys who I mentioned having the dual threat ability, I think he's the most agile of the two. I think he's the most likely to make someone miss. So out of the dual threat guys, I'd probably say Caden Salter is the better dual threat guy. But mostly it's because I've seen the highs of him. Jackson Arnold hasn't really had those great moments yet. Of course, he's just a sophomore going into his junior year next year. Or really, I think he might be he's a redshirt freshman this year. I don't think he wasn't the starter last year, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Am I crazy for thinking that? There's no way he played. He didn't play 4 games last year. There's no way. He did play 4 games last year. So he'll be going into his junior year next year. Caden Salter, on the other hand, he's now played for 4 years, going to go in his 5th year. And you can't have another 5th-year quarterback making first-year quarterback mistakes. You can't have that again. You can't. So I don't know how I feel about Salter right away. Of course, I would need to hear more about the issue. He got benched and had a down year despite having a CUSA schedule. I mean, he played against East Carolina, FIU, Jacksonville State, Massachusetts, Middle Tennessee State, New Mexico State, Sam Houston State, UTEP, and Western Kentucky. And towards the end of the year, I mean, he just didn't get better. He got worse at times. He started off with a very high point to the year. He had a great game versus New Mexico State. Am I looking? And I remember the Kennesaw State game. I mean, they lost to Kennesaw State. Liberty lost to Kennesaw State. The Kennesaw State's first win as an FBS program came at the hands of 5-0 Liberty. Like, I just don't think that there are aspects of his game that he needs to work on. And I don't want to go into the next year expecting to see another development for a quarterback, another 5th-year quarterback needing to get developed over time. I don't want to see that. So he's not the highest on my board right now, but I'm not too high on what Caden Salter can do right now. I think he's a really talented guy. I hope he goes to the best place for him. I just don't know if it's Auburn right now. And the last guy I have on the board that I know Auburn has had, I think has been into conversation with, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if I think not conversation with. I think there's the last guy who Auburn might have some interest in. There we go. That's the correct phrasing that I was trying to say. Is, of course, Texas A&M quarterback Connor Wegman. I just mentioned Marcel Reed just a minute ago, talking about how if he entered the portal, I would love Auburn to go get Marcel Reed. Connor Wegman, though, is the loser of the quarterback battle. Last year, 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, not even 1,000 yards passing. Of course, lost his job halfway through the year to Marcel Reed. Got his job back and was not able to keep it for very long after that. So, yeah, when a guy loses his job, and that's the reason why he transfers, that's where I'm like, I don't really want him to come to Auburn. Because, again, what we've been talking about all offseason already, and, of course, Auburn's offseason has only been 2 weeks, but we've mentioned it for years now, for a year now, is you have to find a guy who can elevate the play of your offense. And looking at Connor Wegman, for instance, I've seen a lot of great plays out of Connor Wegman in his short career, but it's not been over a course of a season. I mean, we're going on next year will be year 4 of Connor Wegman in college. And he doesn't have a season of great play. Of course, there's the injuries that have happened. Of course, I think his first season, he came in late, if I'm not mistaken, and then he got hurt. Then 2023 came along. He was having a great season, and then he got hurt. Then this past year, he was having an okay season, and then he got benched for Marcel Reed. So I'm not for Connor Wegman. I guess that's going to be the quickest way I could say that is I'm not for Connor Wegman in the slightest. But again, out of the guys I've chosen to look at here, other guys I've been hearing Auburn have interest for, I mean, Jackson Arnold probably would be the best available selection for Auburn. Out of the guys available right now, it's Jackson Arnold would probably be the best guy. I think he has the least amount of downside to him. He's a younger guy who probably just needs an off season. I mean, he's had moments. I think you're looking at a guy in probably. I mean, if you want someone who is a G5 and move up, try to see if you can strike gold with probably another Diego Pavia level player, Devin Dampierre. But I don't know if Auburn fans would be okay with that. So yeah, out of the guys I've mentioned today, Jackson Arnold probably my one, and geez, I don't know if I have a two out of this list. Maybe Caden Salter would be on the list somewhere. I just don't know if I could put him in there right now. There's just too much that I need to see fixed out of Caden Salter as a quarterback to want him to go into a year where Auburn needs elite quarterback play and have to put him in there. I think that he's lacking the accuracy trait and he threw too many interceptions last year. Something like Castellanos, he threw too many interceptions the year prior. Miller Moss, I mean, probably might be a 2 or a 3 here because he has a ability to extend plays passing wise, but he doesn't have the ability to run. He's purely a pocket passer. But yeah, you got to wait longer, I guess, is really the timetable here. But I don't know how much longer Auburn has to wait. Quarterbacks are going to start flying off the board very quickly. There are a lot of teams that probably need a quarterback. A lot of teams just lost their quarterback. And they're going to be looking for guys to go to. And now Auburn's lost 2 guys to the portal, Holden Gerner and Hank Brown. Again, we talked about that just at the start of the show because that, again, happened at the start of the show. But ultimately, I think out of the list, Jackson Arnold is your best bet. And junior guy coming through, he probably would just need the offseason at least to get right. I mean, he's had some decent games as a passer, but you got to see him elevate that going forward. I mean, he had a decent end last year in the bowl game. He had a off and on game, but going forward, I mean, I don't like what you got so far. I don't think there's a guy in the portal right now that moves the needle over for Auburn. I think you got to find a guy out of these ranked teams that don't have the NIL funds for their guys. I think you got to wait around for those. I think you got to wait around for maybe some other SEC quarterbacks who want to enter the portal. You want to wait around for some other P4 quarterbacks who want to enter the portal. But you got to strike gold. Auburn can't settle for silver here. They got to strike gold at the quarterback position. And I don't think you have it right now to start one of your freshmen coming up. Walker White needs a year. Deuce Knight definitely is going to need a year. And then you can start putting those guys out there. But you got to get at least a 1-year X factor level quarterback who can change your program and turn things around for you in 12 games. That's all you need. You need 12 games of great quarterback play to turn your program back around and going in the correct direction. Because right now, last year you were 6-7. This year you're 5-7. One less win. So yeah, going forward, you got to get the right guy. And again, Jackson Arnold's the only one I see right now. Only one I see right now who could probably move the needle the slightest. There's too many interceptions amongst some of the other guys, and I don't think you can rest on a G5 guy moving up right now. So yeah, that's my look at the Auburn transfer quarterback board. We're going to talk about the NFL draftees that just declared for the NFL draft this week, and then we'll go to a quick little break, and then we'll talk about Auburn men's and women's basketball to wrap up the show. So as we move forward with the topic number 3 on the board, players declaring for the NFL draft. Philip Bleedy has declared for the NFL draft, and Keandre Lambert-Smith has announced his declaration for the NFL draft. and Rivaldo Fairweather. Philip Bleedy, I think, could be an interesting one. Of course, I've already mentioned several times, I think Valdo and KLS are going to be some of the top players of their position for what they're able to do with the ball and just making plays. I mean, they made Peyton Thorne look good, like great sometimes, or make anybody look great. That's what those two are very good at. Philip Bleedy, I think, would be interesting. He had a off and on year. I think he was dealing with some injuries, but whenever he was on, like a high motor guy, a defensive tackle. It'd be very interesting to see where exactly he would go. I think he does get drafted. KLS, I think, is a round 1 wide receiver, if not early day 2. I think what he can do is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, he's had one of the best seasons an Auburn wide receivers ever had in just 1 year of being here. Day 2 guy at the least. And lastly, Valdo Fairweather. I think we're going to get some more guys declaring for the draft soon enough, but Valdo, I definitely day 2, day 3 guy. I don't know what the tight is going into the portal, or not in the portal, into the draft really are right now. But Valdo, I think you give him some time to really get suited to the NFL. I think he turns into a star. Of course, I'm going to book for a lot of these Auburn guys regardless, but Valdo and KLS, I think, are going to be greats in the NFL. I really, really do. I'll be interested to see who else enters the NFL draft soon enough. Of course, that's going to be every day. You might get a guy declared for the NFL draft going forward. But we're going to go a quick little break. Outside of this break, we're talking about Auburn basketball. Took on Richmond today, as well as women's basketball took on UAB. So we'll go to a quick little break. Outside of this break, don't forget to leave your thoughts on the Auburn quarterback situation. Who do you want Auburn to get from the portal? As someone from another team? Do you just want to go grab someone from someone else? Who do you think would be the best look out of who we talked about today? Leave it in the comment section below, as always. And we're going to quick little break. We'll be right back. Are you tired of having to rummage through just clothes after clothes after clothes, looking for something to wear? Are you tired of your friends making fun of you for your terrible fashion sense? Well, do we have the shirt for you? Go to thewarreport.com, get your laptop out and do it right now. Go to the shop and get your very own Feelin' Loopy t-shirt as well as your college loop hat, and you can get both of them for only $25 each. Plus shipping and handling, of course. But with that, now back to your regular scheduled program. Of course, warreport.com. Go to the shop. There we go. First page, college loop hat. Second page, Feelin' Loop t-shirt. Go check that out today. Those couple items you're going to wear in your entire life. But that's just one way you can support the show. Of course, the best way you can support the show is, of course, by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Of course, always leave your thoughts. We're going to talk about Auburn quarterback until Auburn picks up 2 guys. Really, we're going to talk about that's the off season is always who's going to be at quarterback for Auburn football next year. It's the hot ticket talking point for the entire off season. It was all last year. It was all the year prior. It's probably going to be the same this year. Leave your thoughts on the Auburn quarterback situation. Of course, leave all the positions you think Auburn should go after. We talked about that before. Kevin Concepcion being my number 1 guy I wanted to see go to Auburn, of course, NC State wide receiver. So, yeah, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And, of course, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Can't overstate that enough. Auburn men's basketball took on the Richmond Spiders, I believe is the Richmond Spider. I don't know if they have like another name. It's like arachnids or something crazy like that. But I'm pretty sure they're the Spiders, without a doubt. Yeah, there we go. Richmond Spiders. They have a cute little spider mascot. That's cool. Took them down this morning, 98-54. Auburn hit 10 shots, or not 10 shots. They scored 10 points in 5 minutes, made all 5 of those shots in that run. Richmond was unable to score in the last 5.5 minutes of the game. Auburn had an absolutely phenomenal game. Bruce Pearl had some class at the end of the game and prevented them from hitting 100, telling the walk-on to just run the clock out. For the game, Auburn 48% from the field, shot 69 shots, shot 43% from the three-point line, shot 30 of those. Free throw line, Auburn still iffy, 70%, 19 of 27. Auburn only had 7 turnovers, but produced 15 from Richmond and scored 18 points off of those turnovers. And Richmond only able to put up 3 from Auburn's 7. Total rebounds, Auburn demolished them in rebounds by 18, 49-31. Defensive rebounds were where Auburn got their 13 more. Offensive rebounds got 5. Second chance points, Auburn had 10 more, 22 to Richmond's 12. Bench points, Auburn had 41 points off the bench to Richmond's 7. Points in the paint, Auburn had 38 to Richmond's 20. Fast break points, Auburn doubled theirs, 12-6. Blocks 5-3. Steals 10-7. Assists 23-8. Auburn had the lead, or they were tied for a minute of this game, but Auburn had the lead for 38 minutes and 49 seconds. And of course, the big players to talk about here, of course, always Janai Broom, a little bit of a more quiet night, 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. Didn't get his usual double-double, but allowed for other players to really shine in this game. Denver Jones put up 11, making up for his lack of scoring against Duke. You had Chadwick Mazzara put up 13 points and 6 rebounds and 5 assists. Another great game from CBM. Miles Kelly able to shoot the lights out yet again, shooting 4 for 5 from the 3-point line, putting up 15 points. My math wasn't working there for a second. And 5 rebounds for him as well, and 2 assists. Dylan Cardwell putting up 7 points and 5 rebounds. Tahad Pettiford, another 15.9 from him, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. But I think the best thing to talk about here for this game is, in fact, you got to see Ja'Kai Howard get on the court. His first game this season where you got to see meaningful minutes from Ja'Kai, put up 13 points. A lot of those, some posters all over the place. Dude was putting on a clinic, trying to break the rim. Just overall great game from him. Glad to see him back out on the court. 4 rebounds from him as well. Also got a technical this game, which it's funny because what happened was funny. He dunked, hung on the rim, and then blew a kiss at Richmond's bench, which is hilarious. I love it. Don't do it against SEC or P4 opponents. When you're blowing someone out, I'll allow you to do it, but don't do it whenever you're playing against some harder quality teams. I know Bruce Pearl said this game could be a trap game. This game should have never been a trap game for Auburn. Auburn is the best team in the country, despite the loss to Duke. But yeah, great game overall. You even had Chaney Johnson put up 7 points. You had Mushalek, one of the walk-ons, put up 2 points. Jaheim Hudson put up 2 points, and Simo also put up 2 points. Simo 4 rebounds and 2 assists as well to add to his total. But yeah, great game. Fire Freeze Pearl said CBN volunteered some of his minutes to get Ja'Kai more time on the court. I did hear about that. I love how united this team is together. I was thinking about a hot take, but I want to wait until I see this team play in the SEC before I really say it. But it's got something to do with the comparison between this team and the 2019 team. Not 2019 team, 2022 team. But yeah, I'm gonna hold off on that take until I get to see Auburn play more against SEC opponents. But great game overall from the Tigers, getting a 44-point win here. You got Ohio State next Saturday, so we're going to be holding off till Thursday to do the preview show for that. But super excited to see Auburn play. Just one of the toughest schedules in the country. Auburn being 8-1 right now is phenomenal, to say the least. I mean, you played against Duke and you lost by 6 in Cameron Indoor, despite the fact that place is haunted because refs like to blow the whistle a lot more for the visiting teams. But that's beside the point. But yeah, Holiday Hoopsgiving is this Saturday, or not this Saturday, correct? Yeah, this Saturday, December 14th. Auburn playing Ohio State in Atlanta in State Farm Arena at noon CST. And then after that, you got 3 days for the Georgia State game. Then you got Purdue on the 21st in Birmingham. So home game for Auburn if you're Houston. Then in Monmouth, and then after the year ends and the new year begins, Auburn starts SEC conference play on January 4th. How Auburn plays against Purdue is going to be a big game there. Ohio State's going to be another tough game, but can't go hot looking ahead. Win the rest of your non-con games, and then get prepared for SEC conference play because the SEC is the best conference in basketball. If you were unaware, the SEC's all having a great year. There's not really a terrible team in the SEC, if not mistaken. At the top of the board, it's outstanding. You got Auburn, you got Kentucky, you got Alabama, you got all these schools that are just performing at the top of their game all across the board. Everyone's struggling. Missouri just clobbered Kansas like today. Like it's crazy the level of play that we're seeing from the SEC this season already. I'm trying to pull it up, but ESPN is trying its hardest to make sure I can't boost up the SEC at all. But yeah, Alabama's ranked, Auburn's ranked, Florida's ranked, Kentucky's ranked, Ole Miss is ranked, Oklahoma's ranked, Tennessee is ranked, Texas A&M is ranked. Vanderbilt's 9-1 right now. Texas is 7-2. They're not ranked. South Carolina's 6-3, which I believe right now would be the worst out of the group. I don't know why. There we go. Arkansas is 7-2 in their first year with almost like Coach Calipari. Yeah, Coach Calipari. I almost like Coach K, and I said the right thing. Missouri 8-1, having a great season. They're probably going to be ranked after beating Kansas, demolishing them by that matter. Mississippi State with Josh Hubbard, a really good team. LSU is playing really well despite last year having a bad year. Georgia's 8-1. Yeah, great year from the SEC. I mean, you got three teams in the SEC are undefeated in Florida, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, who they might give Tennessee the number one spot, despite the fact that it's rigged against Auburn. Auburn should be the number one team in the country, despite a loss. That's just my opinion, though. You know, who cares about my opinion? Yeah, SEC is really, really good this year. So yeah, super excited to see the SEC conference play start up because every game is probably already sold out. Every game in Neville Arena, because you get that first game versus Missouri, and of course, if they're playing like they are, it's going to be a ranked matchup. And a lot of these games could end up being ranked matchups that aren't already. So yeah, super excited for that. But great game against Richmond, getting prepared for Ohio State this weekend. And not only did Auburn play Richmond in Neville Arena today, just a couple hours later, Auburn women's basketball took on UAB in Neville Arena. And I don't know what kind. I guess I've never paid attention to when they're playing, where they're playing at exactly whenever they play on the same day. But is this like the first time that these two teams, that Auburn men's and women's basketball have played in the same arena in the same day? Because I don't know if I ever witnessed that happening or I just haven't noticed it happening before. But it did happen the day. Auburn did beat UAB 69-62. Did not have a good chunk of their roster. Only had 8 available players. You didn't have Talia Scott and you didn't have Deona Gaston. You were down a lot of players. And you had Adia Young, who had a great game, 8 points. Taylon Collins had 15. Soraya Daniels had a great game, 14 points. And Celia Sambane put up 14 as well. Auburn survives against UAB. 44% from the field. You shot pretty terrible from the three-point line, but you didn't have your shooters. So you overcome despite shooting 2 of 14. Free throws, 58% from the free throw line. UAB shot 100%, but they only shot 4. Turnovers. Auburn had 11 turnovers, forced 21 from UAB. It would put up 19 points for that. Rebounding. Auburn got rebounded on both offensive and defensive rebounds. Second chance points. Auburn got outscored. Bench points. Auburn got outscored. Points in the paint. Auburn finally got the better of UAB. And fast break points, blocks, steals, and they tied for assists. This game went back and forth for at least 4 times this game. Auburn had the lead for only 2 more minutes than UAB did. But you shot 3 for 3 in your last shots of the game, helped yourself secure the 7-point win. And this is the kind of win Auburn women's basketball needed. They needed a win, and they've gotten a couple in a row now. I think it's they struggle with Oregon and California. You came up short in the Paradise Jam. Yeah, you beat Virginia last week. You beat UAB. Up next on the 18th, you got about a week and a half really before you take on Louisiana, and you just need to keep going. You keep winning out. You got a pretty easy slate of games left on the non-con slate. You got 3 more games. Louisiana Lafayette, Alabama State, and Norfolk State. Keep winning those games. This team, if they continue to go in the right direction, if they continue to win like they can, this team is very talented. You get healthy. You got a week and a half to rest up, and then go all out for the SEC. You start off with Ole Miss, which is always an interesting game whenever both these teams are good. And then, of course, after that, you got LSU and Baton Rouge. and Arkansas after that. And of course, you got a large slate of games. SEC not only is really good in men's basketball, but also really good in women's basketball too. So yeah, I think Auburn women's basketball team is still really good. I think Auburn's going to have 2 teams in March Madness this year. Not doing a play-in. They had them last year, but no play-ins. They're going to have a seed. They're going to be a shoe-in. Just got to find a rhythm. Got to get healthy, and I think this team's going to do some great things with Coach Jay in her fourth or 5th year at this point. Yeah. Super excited for women's basketball and their season ahead. That does it for the installment of the College League Podcast. Again, leave your thoughts on the Auburn quarterback battle. I know that's going to be the biggest thing everyone's going to want to talk about throughout the entire offseason. You don't got a bowl game. You lose out in some practices with some guys that you probably want to see early, which does suck. I wish some of these 6-6 teams would turn down their bowl bid just to get Auburn in. But I don't think it's going to happen for the Tigers. But yeah, the recruiting class coming in, of course, throughout the week. I don't know if it'll be this week or if it'll be next Sunday. We're going to start doing some grading for Auburn's 2024 season, grading transfer portal additions, grading the 2024 recruiting class, grading offenses and defense, special teams, grading all that beautiful, beautiful stuff based on stats. And I'm pretty sure y'all can guess what some of these grades are going to be going forward. But yeah, we'll be doing that throughout the week more than likely. But stay tuned for all of that going forward. Of course, I'm Larck, able to take on Twitter. Of course, follow me on Instagram as well at Larck, at DYLENLARCK. Visual aids right here in the bottom left. Of course, you can also find me right here in the College League Podcast. We should like, comment, subscribe. Of course, check us out on social medias as well. All of us at The College Loop. That's Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, the works. All those at The College Loop. And, of course, audio versions of the show as well on Spotify Podcast, Google Podcast, of course, Amazon Music. And, of course, all that being said, thanks for watching this installment of the College League Podcast. And as always, War Eagle.